me now, right? Okay, sorry. Hey, y'all. I'm super excited to be in this space with you. Thank you, James, for the introduction. Thank you, Jima, for always holding these spaces for us to engage in conversation and to do the work. I want to just preface by saying that we're going to spend some time reflecting as individuals, but also doing some group work. So we're going to do some breakout groups and we're also going to do some large groups, large group debrief. So just wanting to name that so you can prepare yourself if you have a little social anxiety like I do, just try to get yourself prepared.
Not to mention this during our rehearsal, but can we do a collective um like breath together before we jump into this?
You want to hold it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Hey everyone. I know this conversation can be charged, in a lot of different ways. So just wanted to just do an collective breath together. So if everyone, wants to just follow my lead, you can do so, or you can go at your own pace. But I'll just do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. One more. Breathe in, breathe out. All right, y'all. Thank you. Pass it back to you, Tommy.
Thank you, James. Can I have you share our slideshow, please? Let me know if you need me to drop it.
Oh, you know, are you not sharing it? All right, I can share it.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Thank you. And so, like we said, we're here to talk about Black money lineages, and I really appreciated hearing the different voices in the room about what that means to you, because I think it is a mixture of everything that everyone has mentioned today. It is that, that harm, it is that joy, it's all of the things that we mentioned. So just thank you for adding your insights and voices to the space. So, if this is your first Ujima Wednesday, welcome. But if you've been a part of Ujima Wednesday for a while, you know they lead us through very beautiful conversations month to month. Last month, the focus was on myth busting. And this month, we're focusing on Black money lineage. But just to just reiterate some of the things that came out of that myth busting conversation, if you can go to the third slide, one more. Sorry, back one more. There we go. So, we had a speaker, and his name was Jared Bald, and he was a part of the March series of Black Buying Power, Myth or Fact. And during his conversation, he mentioned this quote that I want to just root us in for the day. And it says, our country's media environment was constructed, all of which is to justify, support, and aid the process of settler colonialism, exploitation, and a sort of counterinsurgent public relations, propaganda, psychological warfare, suppression of our radical concepts, ideas, and ultimately our behavior. And this statement really stuck out to me because it makes me think about how dominant these narratives are and how they're perpetuated and pervasive and to help those who have power keep that power. And so as I was preparing to do this talk on Black money lineage, I have a definition that folks at Ujima and I have, come up with and talked about, but I was like, let me just do a quick Google search. And in that Google search, when I type, you can go back. Um, when I typed Black money lineage, a few things happened. So one, they completely ignored the word lineage. They took it out. And they said instead, Black money refers to income generated through illegal activities or legal income that is not reported to tax authorities to evade taxes. It is unaccounted for in official financial records and often transacted in cash within an underground economy. And I was like, okay, let me type in white money lineage. And when I typed in white money lineage, it all three words popped up together in this beautiful little sentence, and it said, white money lineage typically refers to the concept of old money in the United States, representing families who have maintained wealth, social standing, and political influence over multiple generations, often tracing their ancestry back to the earliest settlers. And I thought to myself, the media is doing its job. These systems of harm are doing exactly what they are made to do. And even in putting these words together in a Google search, the 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 nice things that they say about white money lineage and how it's rooted in something of like family and wealth with a full erasure of the state sanctioned violence on Black communities and the erasure of this racialized capitalism that we are a part of. And you can go to the next slide to just share what I mean when I say racialized capitalism. And so it's the process of deriving social and economic value from racial identity, wherein capital acclamation relies on the exploitation, racism, and devaluation of non-white bodies. So even in doing this Google search, we see how pervasive these dominant narratives are, and we see how harmful that they are. And also, when Jared Ball was here, he talked about how when he was situating himself in his work around buying Black power, he had to quote unquote look under the hood, investigate, look at these dominant narratives that are out there and lead with curiosity and wanting to know more. And so I invite us all today as we look at the Black money lineage, that we look under the hood, that we settle into our own histories and we think about the ways in which we move differently. And moving differently does not mean worse. It means we move differently because we have to and because we think differently. We're communal. We prioritize care, we prioritize love, we prioritize each other, which is so different when we think about white money lineage. Okay. So I just want to say those things and and before I wrap up, I'll just talk about how we define Black money lineage in this conversation. And we define it as Black economic practices that build agency and self-determination. And when we think about agency and self-determination, we also have to think about our history. It's led by economic practitioners of our communities. So that could be your mom, your grandma. It could be the folks that were, writing history books and, like the educators. But these practices and these practitioners allow for our communities to be sustainable, innovative, and again, rooted in care. So this is the definition that we are using as we move throughout today. And I have talked enough, so I'm going to pass it back to James. But yeah.
Thank you, Tommy. Me before I go there. Um, yeah, I wanna just like start by naming just I'm really excited to share just this conversation or to have this conversation. I think I've been just so proud of just how expansive our lineage is as Black people and all the ways that we show up for each other and support our communities. It's just like throughout the just preparing for this conversation, it's just brought back a lot of memories that I've had as a child of African immigrants coming to this country, trying to figure it out, building our own communities, our own hubs, to just make a way. And so definitely some of the things y'all started sort of the conversation around what are all the things that we do through our check-in. We're going to sort of help us um, hone in on a little more of those um, rituals, practices, that models, economic models that our folks have built to sustain ourselves for a long time. And so Tommy and I sort of just sort of gather what we would call Black money lineage archetypes. And this is not sort of the list of all lists as it relates to archetypes surrounding this concept, but really wanted to help sort of really generate just all the various ways that this economic wellness of our community shows up. And under collective survival and shared risk, I think a lot of y'all are familiar with just our tendency are to lend money to family and friends, that, certain spaces are communal, this is for everybody. Um, I had, growing up in Philadelphia as first generation Sierra Leonean American, my family often housed a lot of my close relatives and even like our like cousins who were just really people who came from the same ethnic tribe or like were in neighboring towns to my parents that my parents like knew of kind of, but were coming to this country without many people, any family, right? And there was this way in which we were like cousining each other to really ensure that there was like respect and like care sustained in that relationship. And so similarly, y'all might have similar stories like that in your own family where your family has like continued to house without uh expectations of finance or money, but because, this is something I have and this is and these are the people I love and I care about. Circulation. I think a lot of us are familiar with Buy Black uh, campaigns that a lot of us that show up during Black History Month, but often show up all over the year, but are meant to really honor uh, Black entrepreneurs, and keep, the money in our community many times over. And so that's an example. Just investing in businesses is an example. Resourcefulness and improvisation. I will struggle with that one. It's just, I think making something out of nothing, the ways that we repurpose without much uh, available side hustles, barter, just the informal work that we do to get through. Uh, there's just a variety of different ways that just where it looks, but those are some examples. Tommy, do you want to talk more about cooperative and collective
Yeah.
building?
Thank you, James. So we also put up here cooperative and collective building. So a lot of like shared ownership, shared decision making on things. I think of community organizations. I think of Ujima Boston. I think of being around the kitchen table and coming up with an idea, with your people. And all of that is the part of our Black money lineage. I also think of invisible labor and gendered economics. So, specifically, I think about Black women who are both when I think about my lineage, who have both been the financial and the social anchors in the family and in the community. And I'll briefly just share a quick story about my grandma, who was a teacher, and my grandfather was a truck driver. And unfortunately, he was a Rolling Stone, for those who get that reference. So my grandmother was often left to tend to the kids in the home, pay the bills, and go to work all on her own. And it was another Black woman who really helped my grandmother to make ends meet. She would give her extra money, like front her the extra money when she got paid, um, and help each other. They would barter. They would, my grandmother would pay her back. But like these systems of care and emotional labor, that are really rooted in the work of Black women that often goes unnoticed. I also think about our informal and our formal financial systems. So I think of off the book exchanges. Like, who was the person in your community that had the money who you can go to and get a loan? You know, you had to pay that back, but you know, you're gonna get that loan. What are the susus, the lending circles? And I think about how all of these systems were so deeply rooted in trust and relationship building. Like, you don't know who the off the book person is if you're not rooted in your community. You can't just walk up on him and think you're gonna get this money if you are not trusted in your community. I
Mhm.
also think about um, how like these more formal institutions and even now are still very rooted in racism and not letting us have access to things. And so when people were talking about the Black Wall Streets, I was like, yes, it was not only in Oklahoma that these Black Wall Streets existed, they existed in every place, really. I think of like the Maggie Walkers from Richmond, who became the first Black woman to, to be the president of a bank. And so these other ways in which we have allowed ourselves to infiltrate these formal systems, but also saying, I don't need to be a part of this formal system. I can create my own thing. And so we give this list or these ideas or these archetypes not as an exhaustive list. We know there are ways in which Black money lineage is deeper than the things that we mentioned or more. And so just want to note that. But we wanted to use it to help us get into our lineage mapping activity that James will talk a little bit more about.
Mm. Yes. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the next slide. Here we go. Oh, so yes, we want to hear from you all, and we also want everyone to, um, yeah, practice this sort of exercise of mapping their lineage, understanding what has been true, what is what you're not sure about as it relates to your money lineage. So we wanted to really offer a space for folks to practice, and we're gonna first have an experience where we'll do this. Um, you'll do this independently, and as I said, these are some questions to help guide that reflection that you can think about, and we'll have some. We'll give everyone about, I don't know, 6 minutes, Tommy.
Yeah, that's fine. 6 minutes.
But as I noted, this is an effort for you to start to percolate. What is your story? And start to map your own lineage around money. These are questions that we've generated to help you start to think through that. Um, so, what did you inherit? How did your ancestors ensure everyone was fed? Was there a community pot or a tradition of sharing? Resources with neighbors. Uh, what was the relationship between your family and the church, mosque, or spiritual center? Was tithing or giving back a non-negotiable? What does your lineage money feel like? Is it crisp bills in a bank or crumpled 20s in a jar? Is it a smell of a specific shop or the sound of a certain relative's voice? We'd love for you guys to just start to think through that. You can write it down on a piece of paper, or you can just like have it in your head. But we want to give y'all some about 6 minutes, and then we'll come back um, together.
Yeah. And you can also draw if you feeling like you want to. 6 minutes ain't enough time for a masterpiece, but I believe in y'all. But we'll put 6 minutes on the clock and then we'll call folks back. Does that feel clear? Anybody have any questions? Cool. James, you want me to hold the timer?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. I'm particularly curious about what folks' lineage um money feels like. This last question, Chris bills. Um, I had a wealthy uncle who used to smell good, and so it made me immediately think of him, and just um like, yeah, looking forward to seeing him. So I'm curious if folks have like folks like that, like, or it could be someone in the neighborhood who just always dress well. and I always gave you like a couple dollars.
Can I hop in?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like my black money lineage kind of feels like and smells like a knot of like old paper. My grandfather, who really was the like provider of my family and who really stewarded, me, raised me growing up. He had a bank account but didn't trust banks. He had credit cards but didn't trust cards. And he always carried around a wad of money in a money clip. Was one of the things that I really wanted of his when he passed away was his money clip. And so yeah, and there was a smell when somebody like unfolds a big wad of money. There's this like waft of like paper smell that I'm like reminded of.
Mhm. I love that. Thank you so much, Ray. Kendra?
Yeah, no, that brought up a lot of memories for me, right? When you shared that. One thing, I guess an unspoken rule in my family is cash is king. Like
Mm-hmm.
cash is king, everything else comes with attachments. You have cash. And part of that was because cash is like untraceable, cash is, and I think that is something I really didn't reflect on until now. And growing up, anytime my mom would get me a little cute purse, she would always put $1 in it or $2 in it. She's like, "You never give a purse when it's empty. You never give an empty bag, And she always really like I guess called in prosperity into my life through small gifts like that, whether it be a purse or I'm looking at this money tree she bought me for my new like my apartment. And she was like, "Kendra, you can't buy your own money tree. Someone needs to buy you a money tree." And just seeing it grow and how she's in line that like, "Oh, that's really great. Your money tree's prospering in Boston in the winter, right?" And I was like, wow. And, my mom has already always called that into my life, whether through prayer or through small gifts.
Mm, mm. Thank you so much for that, Kendra.
Would love to hear if there are any voices in person that might want to share what came up for you
Yeah,
when going through this exercise. Anything stand out?
mhm.
I see movement happening over there, but y'all are on mute, so not sure what's happening.
Yeah, we got. Oh,
Okay. Okay.
One second, y'all.
You can stop sharing the screen and we can just.
yeah, we have one person that's willing to share.
Yeah, I'll just, no,
I don't know if they
I'll,
can hear you though. I think you might have
oh,
to
I
come
gotta,
over
yeah,
here.
I gotta get up.
Come take a seat right here.
Okay, I gotta go sit on this. Okay, can you make
That might
it
be
up?
difficult. Yeah, right here.
Okay,
Perfect.
well, I'll just sit next to my friend here.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
So we had a great conversation over here. I just want to say some shy folks. Hi, James. So we were talking. For me, one of the things I noticed is I was really looking at the last question, and what I had a moment of clarity around was how much I grew up a very communal, and I was adopted by white people in Oregon. I grew up very communally. There's a lot of white supremacy. Don't worry, that's not wasn't that was also part of it, but the actual practice of bartering and caring for each other was part of the practice of the community I grew up in. But in my own home, there was a lot of struggle and a lot of stuff about don't spend money, don't do this, and like everything was very tight. And I've always carried that, and I didn't realize how much I carried that. In the last few years, I've been unpacking that and healing that. And what I realized in that question made me go, well, what is that? what is that smell or legacy, or what do I think about? And it made me think of this past week. I went and bought a pomegranate last week, and I was like, oh, I love pomegranates. And I like had it in a salad, it had it in fruit. But to me, it's like this idea that like it had been one thing, and thriving is this thing of like, I'm not thinking about should I buy this or not, or that's like really, oh, that's so bougie to have this pomegranate. It's like, this is a pomegranate, you know? But it's this idea of like what you're worth having, right? And that somehow even with this culture of sharing and whatever and taking care of each other, there's still this like you're not deserving, and there's a worth around it. And noticing what healing does, and when one is taking on this mending of like practices that no longer serve and moving into thriving and being in a practice of thriving, it's like, it just made me think about as a representative kind of symbol of like, it's not about the pomegranate, but it is about what we can hold as our worth and what the lineage of shifting that. And I think, what do we do? How do we shift some of the things that we've learned? Or how do we, or how do, and maybe also how do we go in deeper, right? So the collective, the desire of sharing and taking care of each other are important values. But how do I hold those values and hold worth, and hold it as a place of thriving, not as a place of combating the world, right? Not as a place of violence. And I think that that's what this conversation kind of makes me think of like a lot of these things we've done, some of it's coming out of cultures, but then when we kind of interrogate that question, is it coming out of a place of thriving in the world together? Or is it coming out of a place of we're thriving in spite of? And there's a level of violence, whether it's spoken out loud or underneath or in our face, right? And it's the story. So, all right, that's all.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think you bring up such beautiful points around like survival versus thriving. And I think about even like how survival is so deeply embedded in our bodies that we don't like picking up that pomegranate. You're like, I don't deserve this pomegranate, but you do deserve the pomegranate. We all deserve the pomegranate or whatever fruit that you feel like you don't deserve, you deserve it. And it's like also a reframing that we have to do and a healing that we have to do. Because even in our Black money lineage, there's harm, both from external factors and internal factors, and it's working through those things as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. Anybody else feeling moved to share before because we're getting close to time. I want to honor people's time.
And the mic. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, y'all got mics over there? Y'all fancy?
Oh, yeah, now
You want to be? What do you want to be on camera?
yeah, you get to sit up there on camera with the mic.
The mic and the camera. Yeah. No, it's just you hear your voice on the mic is so different. I was supposed to do it for Mia, but can you hear me? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, we can hear.
Something that we were talking about was just how narratives and value systems culturally are taught within your home, and then trying to go outside and it's a whole different value system, whether it's being communal, whether it's time, whether it's sharing money, and how it's so difficult to keep those values alive in this kind of capitalistic society, and then when you try to do that, and we didn't talk about this, but I realized when I was listening to you, like my mom has been here since she was 18, and just how she's been rewired and conditioned, to move away from those things that she was teaching me when we were young. And it's like, it's in everything that she does, it's in everything that I do, whether it's the school system, whether it's her job, whether it's even, trying to get on the transportation system. All these things that we do on a daily basis keep reinforcing like the opposite of the value system that she grew up with, culturally. And so like it's like this friction, and that also can be like very violent, and you can feel like you don't deserve something, or this is wrong, because of that. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing. Any other thoughts? No, I really appreciate what you shared because I do feel like we're living in a constant duality, of like these values are important to me, but I also need to pay my rent. And paying my rent sometimes causes me to be more of an individual or be more in competition, be more cutthroat that genuinely disaligns with my values. And so it's like a constant inventory that we have to do with ourselves and checking in. So I appreciate you saying that out loud because it is true and it is difficult. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I got the answer because I'd be struggling myself. But I think those are things we have to grapple with as we're moving forward because we're also in the process of creating a Black money lineage for the people to come up after us. And so we have to really recenter and reground in what's important to us as a collective. But I'll pause there and see if there are any other thoughts. And if not, I'll kind of pass it back to James.
Any other in-person thoughts?
Oh, thank you. So,
Yeah, kind of as we were doing this activity, I think something that came up for me just was yeah, really being proud of our legacy of care and our commitment to doing that through our generations as Black people. And I also was, because I read something about this, it made me think of the Black tax a little bit and just the ways that sometimes, which refers to this like phenomenon where, with some Black people, we feel like financial obligation to take care of, you know, particularly folks in our family more so. And that sometimes means that we're carrying a heavier burden than other folks. And just seeking some sort of balance, right? Like around that, like a healthy one at that, where I can still feel proud and know that I'm here supporting my community and I'm not doing that at the cost of like my own like abilities and wellness. And really trying to figure out that balance is like um I think it's a life's journey. Uh, and so uh yeah, so not just to note that's not something that I think always comes easy. It's something that you have to reassess at different points in your life.
right. It is 7:08. So we had some other activities we wanted to do with you all, but we want to honor people's time. But before we leave, I just want to name this conversation was meant to really focus on the I and where you stand, where you think of, what comes up for you. And the rest of this month, we're going to explore more of the we and the us. And so we do hope that you will come back on Wednesday, next Wednesday, and join us as we deepen the conversation around Black money lineage and what that means for us as we progress and how we can use that to leverage and move forward and just, build up our Black wealth and care and all of the great things. So I will pass it back to the Ujima folks for closeout, or are we good?
Can I just ask one
Yeah.
question?
Oh,
If, Tommy, can you hear me?
yes.
I was just asking if you would please share what I missed it, the slide you showed about what Google said about what you got about what a Black money lineage is.
Yes, it's in my notes, but yeah, I'll share my little notes. No
Okay.
problem.
Thank you, Donna.
And definitely before we close out, if there are any questions um, or reaction.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank y'all for the
Yeah.
time, for the conversation, vulnerability. I know it's not always easy to get up and talk, so I really do appreciate people for sharing, even the folks whose voices we didn't hear out loud. I hope that you got some kind of nugget from today's conversation that you can percolate on. But yes, thank you all. Thank you, James, for being my co-facilitator. And then Eugene Boston, of course. And shout out to Runway.